Hi everyone, it's Susie de Jong and this is Masterpiece in Progress. And today I'm just beyond thrilled to have the infamous Bettina Arndt on the show with us today, because our topic is one that I get asked about a lot, and that is entering the internet dating scene. So like many other people of a certain age, I've known Bettina, followed Bettina for a long time, when she used to have her own radio show on radio stations throughout Australia and was known as the Sex Doctor. And I'm sure that you've seen Bettina, as she's also a social commentator on many shows on television. She writes for leading newspapers and magazines. She's got a series of best-selling books. And she also, for a time, was working as a coach for people to help them navigate through internet dating. So writing up their profiles so that they had more chance of attracting the right person. And she's going to be working on some new exciting ventures, which she may share with us later. We'll just see. So I've been stalking Bettina, literally, for I think since about July last year, because this is a really, it's a really prevalent thing in the women that I work with of this age, like 40 plus, because the dating landscape is just totally different than, you know, back when we were in our teens or early 20s. And a lot of people are really struggling with this. And as you are the expert, Tina, that's why I wanted to speak to you today. So thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Nice to talk to you, Susie.
It is finally.
Yeah.
I may be a stalker, but I promise I'm a nice stalker.
No, that's good.
So the reason I wanted to have you on the show is that I said I work as a coach mentor for women 40 plus, helping them to navigate through this age of challenges that we have at this age, such as, you know, relationship breakdowns, kids leaving home, menopause, career crisis, all those sort of things. So I like to speak to people, wise women like you, who can offer us some advice.
Yeah.
I actually like to refer to this stage of life as midlife puberty blues, because it really feels like it. It feels like everything's up and down, and just as challenging as it was when we were teenagers. And when you've been in a relationship for an extended time, Tina, like a lot of women have at this age, and then suddenly you find yourself on your own, it's such a different world now. And it's really hard to sort of navigate. And it could be, you know, through loss of a spouse or a relationship ending, and then you finally find yourself on your own and you just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, because I hope you don't mind me saying that, did you meet your partner online?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I spent almost 7 years online, on and off, in between relationships. Mm-hmm. When I first heard about online dating, I thought, yes, that's for me. I mean, I immediately thought, this is magic. I more than most people, I'm out and about, I meet lots of people, but I've always known how hard it is to actually go out and meet suitable partners. Most of us have very little opportunity for doing that in real life. And if you go out looking, it's actually a deeply humiliating process. I remember once being at a friend's 60th birthday party, you know, 100 people there, a big room full of people. You start chatting to a guy, 10 minutes later, his wife pops up next to him. And, you know, you just cannot ask as the first question, are you single? Should I bother to talk to you? You know, I mean, to go through that process of wondering if there's anyone in that room who might, A, be single and available, and B, be interested in me, it's just, I found that whole process really difficult, and something I didn't want to put myself into, you know, up for. I would never go to bars. I would never go out looking for a man, because I think that it's on a hiding to nothing. And it's really rare we run into people in social settings, or run into people by going out looking, you know, in restaurants or in bars or in whatever, clubs, or and you feel as if you're desperate and you know, that everyone is it's obvious to everyone what you're doing. Now, online dating is about men and women who are all single. I mean, most of the good sites work really hard to try to eliminate married people, eliminate people who are scamming in various ways. So, you know, most people there are actually looking for partners. No one thinks it's embarrassing or odd to be, I mean, everyone starts off by apologizing and saying, I don't know what I'm doing here. But once you get used to it, everyone understands this is a great means of connecting with people. But it's nothing to do with dating. I mean, that whole initial process of going out and meeting lots of people isn't a date, because unless you actually have a mutual interest in each other, unless you meet and click in some way, you can't possibly have a date because you don't even know each other. So I think that's the problem. It's oversold as dating when it's nothing to do with dating. And it sets up too high expectations. The web, you know, the sites do that themselves by promising the perfect match and pretending it's all going to be really easy. It's not. Oh. This business of finding someone with whom you're compatible is a really difficult business, and you have to start off with that assumption. And particularly if you're over 40 or over 50 or whatever, we're complicated. We've all got histories. We've all got long shopping lists of what we want and don't want. And, you know, it's not an easy business. If you think about the men you know in your life, your partner's friends, your partner's husbands, how many of them even really appeal to you? You know, most women say, I can hardly think of anyone who I really, you know, I know in my life who I'd really fancy. And then you think, well, what are the chances of randomly running into someone like that? It's just not possible. So you have to start with the assumption, I'm going to have to go out and meet lots and lots of people. And then eventually I'll find people I like. And if I'm even luckier, they will like me too. People put more effort into looking for a refrigerator or looking for a new car than they do trying to find this magical connection. And it's nuts because the fridge has to like you too. I mean, it's not just choosing a fridge you like. I mean, that's the thing about this. And so you have to start off with the assumption, this is going to be part of my life for a long time. Going out, not desperately seeking someone, and I'm a miserable person, I don't have enough in my life. And it's all my clients. I did online dating coaching for nearly 5 years. I've just decided to take a break from it at the moment. But I must have seen 200 or 300 people in that time, mainly women over 50, because they're the people who tend to know me best from my past life in the media. And and lots of those women would come to me and say, oh, I've actually tried online dating, it didn't work for me. And when I started talking to them about it, they'd say, they'd admit, well, they went out and they met 2 people and they gave up, you know, they weren't right and they gave up. They immediately decide it's not working. I mean, it's just nuts. If you were trying to buy a house in Sydney, you're really one of the really demanding housing markets, you wouldn't just look on a Saturday morning at 3 houses and give up. I mean, I just think we approach this in the wrong way. And you've got to just assume I'm going to enjoy this process. It'll be part of my social life. My friends used to say, my God, how can you keep doing this? You know, when I was in the 5th year or 6th of going out and meeting people. And I said, I love it. I mean, I do like meeting people. And I didn't see it as looking for the one. I saw it as enjoying meeting lots of men and enjoying. I have lots of male friends now through that process. I've never had lots of male friends in my life because I've been married most of my life. But, you know, I mean, it's just lovely to meet people who you end up with friends as, and you're not, you know, you don't end up as partners. And then in that 7 years, I had 3 or 4 really significant relationships, wonderful men who for various reasons didn't work out. I mean, the first lovely man, you know, he'd been on his own for 12 years. I was just separating. I had my youngest child living with me. There was no way I wanted to live with anybody, and no way I'd have allowed a man to move into my life with my son. And I didn't want to see someone every day of the week. I didn't want to have someone in our family life. It was really important to me to have some time on my own. And he hated that. And that's the reason we ended up breaking up, and we're very close still. So I had these great relationships, but I also had this new social life. And that's what you can promise people. They will have this new aspect to their social life, which involves meeting men, which involves getting dressed up to go out on a date, you know, when you do meet someone you like, and all of the fun of that, all of the adventure and excitement of that. And you have to imagine, and I'm not saying it's easy, and there are difficult aspects of it, but you can manage them in a way that you just enjoy the good things. And that's what's important.
I really love that, the fresh perspective you brought to this, because I know a lot of women do go into this looking for the one, but you know, you've just given me a whole new perspective. It's like the fridge analogy.
Yeah.
You do expect things just to work like that sometimes. That's just the way women's minds work, I think, too.
Yeah.
What I've done, I've got a couple of people in my close circle who are actually internet dating, not me, I have a partner, but and we sat together and got some questions for you, some burning questions. And I've got a particular friend who, to protect her name, I'll call her Kitty, who helped me with these questions. And these are really, I think, and you might be able to fill in some more, but these are the ones that the top ones that we came up with that I think really help women out there, and men if they're watching this too. So you might want to grab a pen, guys, or you know, you can watch the video again later. So these are really practical things. So in setting up an online profile, Tina, what are some tips you can give us on what sort of things to include or not include in a profile to attract the right sort of person, such as personal information, photos, etc.? Well,
let's start with the photos. Photos are absolutely critical. I still have photographers in every city, in all the big cities that I've worked with for years and years, who really know how to take. Well, you don't want photos that are flattering, but natural. You don't want people. The horrible thing is when you meet someone and their face falls because you look nothing like your photo. Don't even think of putting a photo up that's 10 years old. I mean, I know lots of women are doing that, and they're just nuts. Because why on earth would he want to even, you know, he'll be getting out of that first date as quickly as he possibly can, because you've started off the whole thing with a crashing disappointment for him. I know a man who drove from Canberra to Sydney to meet a woman who turned out to be 15 years older than she said she was. And she had 15 years old photos there. I mean, so good photos, natural photos, you have to show something about what you're like. I mean, one of the biggest problems I have is women being overweight. And if there's one message to women about starting online dating is think about losing some weight first, particularly if you're obese, because your chances, if you're really overweight, of meeting men who are interested in you are really diminished. I once had this wonderful male client who quite liked curvy women. I mean, he preferred them. And we started his profile, you know, no Twiggy for me. I love curvy women. He was just knocked over in the rush. But unfortunately, he's rare. And lots of men are very resentful about women's weight because they say, we can't do anything much about our balding hair. We can't, you know, lots of men age pretty badly, and they can't do much about how they look. Women can do a lot about getting fit. And it says a lot to a man if a woman doesn't make that effort. That's just a starting point. But so I have these great photographers, and we always put in some sort of photo that shows what her body is like. But, you know, we mastered the art of making curvy women look good by arranging them on a hillside. You know, but I mean, but you have to. If you look carefully, you can see. You know, this is a woman who's got a bit of weight on her, but it wasn't something that was glaring. You know, so it's about showing what you're like in the best possible way. And that's absolutely essential. Don't think you can just show a photo of your neck upwards. It's, you know, men get that. Men say to me, they look at women's arms. If you've got a bit of your arms showing, they're looking for the tuck shop arms. You know, men have a lot of now, and you know, it's a very but not all men are so judgmental, of course. And there are many men who, you know, women would say to me, well, look at the men, they're not that great. But the point is that they are in the buyer's market. And you must never forget that there is this disproportionate number of single older men to single older women to men. So if you look at the men and women in their 50s, last time I looked at the figures, it was like 58,000 more single women than men. If you look at women in that group, I think something like 14% of the men had degrees and twice as many of the women. So you've got already this great disparity, particularly in the well-educated groups. And you just have to assume that. So that's the reason a man needn't bother with putting up too good a profile, or needn't bother making much effort in getting good photos. If people want to go and look at my website, I've got a video. I took my partner online. I mean, not online, on television, on morning television, because I wanted to use him as a lesson. The story of how we met was so funny. He had the world's worst profile shot, and if you look at that television clip, you'll see that there. The people who were interviewing us were just in stitches. They said he looked like something in a, I don't know what, a police lineup or something. It was a sort of selfie. And I looked at his photo number. I'd seen it many times online over a period of whatever, a few months or something, and I never bothered to even read the profile. One day he heard me on a radio program talking about writing profiles, and I said, you can't just claim to have a good sense of humor, you have to say something funny. And he went and rewrote his profile and talked about, he made fun of the whole number of people who claimed to be into extreme sports and, whitewater rafting and all that stuff. And he said, I'm into extreme hopscotch. I mean, he had some funny bits in there, which I thought were rather cute. So I thought, oh, well, I'll send him a kiss. And I did. And, that's how we met. But have a look at, ladies, have a look at that, at his profile shot, because there's a lesson there that a lot of men don't make any effort, and they don't need to, sadly. I mean, the ones who do, that's fantastic. But others will do really sloppy grammar and spelling and just put something down. And they'll still get a lot of attention. And that's life. But as women, you also, I mean, there's no point being resentful of that. Think of when you were a gorgeous young thing and 20 years old and knocking men back like flies. I mean, we had our turn, most of us, where we had a lot of male attention, and we often didn't treat men very well. And now it's men's turn, and some of them won't treat it. Yeah, it's like, that's life. Some of them won't treat us very well, but there are a lot of lovely men out there. But don't judge them too quickly by their profiles. But it means you need to really make an effort to write a really good profile. So don't write a long shopping list. Your profile isn't about what you want and what you need. And I must have this and I need that. And I don't want any players. And don't put anything negative in your profile. Don't list all the things you don't want in a man. Why would a man be attracted to that? Your job in a profile is to firstly bring a smile to his face. You want him to find something funny, quirky, interesting about what you're saying. You have to stand out from the crowd. And of course, I've been in media for 40 years. I know, it's about writing the great headlines. My headline in my profile when I had one up was does titanium tremble? And I explained in the profile that I'd had a knee replacement, and and it talked about looking for a man who makes me weak at the knees. And so that's the whole thing about does titanium tremble? Well, you'd like to help me find that out. I always put in, if I can, with my clients, I always put in a saucy touch. Nothing works better in a woman's profile than a subtle, not crass, not vulgar, not over the top, but a subtle little sexy comment or two, just to show you're still in the game. I mean, lots and lots of older women aren't remotely interested in sex, and if you are interested in having sex as part of your relationship, you want to make that clear in a subtle way. So I absolutely nailed that for my women. And we always had that. And it means men come on very strong to you, because men tend to anyway. But you can just talk about it. So if a man tries to get you into bed on the first date, you just say, I used to joke with men and say, there's this thing about going out, the 3-date rule. You go out on 3 or 4 dates, and then the pressure comes on. Either is this relationship getting serious, or i.e. intimate, or is it doomed? Yeah. And I used to joke about the 3-date rule with my dates, saying I have a 3-month rule, which sometimes gets broken. But I mean, the point I made is I'm not remotely interested. I used to talk to them about that. I don't go to bed with men I don't know. I need to get to know a man. I need to know this is a relationship that's going to be ongoing. I don't leap into bed with strangers, and you can have that sort of conversation. So you shouldn't be worried about indicating that sort of stuff in your profile. It should be a light-hearted, funny way. You don't leave out your career. I mean, that's what blows me away. Women talk about their Pilates classes, their dogs, their book clubs, their all this female bullshit that men aren't remotely interested in. And they never say what they've done in their lives, because they're nervous of a man identifying them. You've got to talk about who you are. And most women's career is a very big part of who they are. And you don't have to say, I'm a physiotherapist that works in so-and-so street. And, you don't have to give specific stuff. You can just hint at it and talk about it. I had a woman who used to work for John Howard in the Prime Minister's department, very big job. And we started off her profile, yes, Prime Minister. And then it said, I used to help Kerry O'Brien, help ministers. I used to coach ministers for Kerry O'Brien interviews, which made her, Kerry O'Brien was a famous television interviewer back in the, I don't know how long ago, 80s and 90s. And so it sort of, men of her age knew exactly what she was talking about. They gave enough hints that she was in that sort of big job, mixing with, powerful people. And it was something that would intrigue men. And there's always something about women's careers or funny. I always look for funny stories about their jobs and what they've done, and a way of you have to show, you walk the walk. You have to show your humor by saying funny things. You have to show how smart you are by weaving in bits about the books you read, or if you're no point claiming to be an intellectual and then saying nothing remotely interesting. I mean, whatever it is, it's important to demonstrate what sort of person you are. And but it took me years to work out how to get that out of people. People just look at the blank screen and think, what on earth could I say about myself? Think about how your mother would describe you. She wouldn't say, women fill their profiles full of adjectives. I'm interesting, lively, blah, blah. A list of adjectives are boring reading. What I want to know is, if your friends or if your mother were trying to describe you, what stories would they tell about you? And the stories are what make the profile come alive.
That is a great tip. So guys, think about that. I think that's probably so much better way to do it.
Yeah. And you don't write paragraphs. Don't write long profiles. I mean, I try to keep my profiles as short paragraphs. I often put in lists of things like do's and don'ts, or likes and dislikes, or can and can't do's. Can't do Parramatta Road on a Friday afternoon, white chocolate, listening to Alan Jones. Put in a whole mix of things that describe what you like or what you don't like. And the quirkier, the better. So don't write long descriptions. Keep it short and snappy and funny.
So I guess I'd also like to find out, Tina, what are some of the rules? This is talking with my circle on the internet dating scene, what to expect. But also, as a woman, I want us to be the leader in this experiment. Instead of sitting there waiting for the phone to ring, like we probably did when we were younger, I want women to be more assertive in what they want from a partner and what their values and goals are. So how do you go into that?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. There's a new phone app. There's Tinder, which is the major phone app. There's one, I think it's called Bumble, which requires the women to initiate. So that there's no contact unless the woman initiates, which my daughters use that and met lots of nice men through it. I mean, it's an interesting concept because it's saying online dating used to be all about men, approaching women, and now it's totally turned around. And you don't do well at all if you sit and wait for the men to approach you. And if you wait and see who approaches you and rely on them, you're not getting the cream of the crop. You're getting the bottom of the barrel, because the men who are, you'll get some good guys, but you'll also get a lot of men. And there are men who send out kisses. I talk about kisses, which is the means of communicating that RSVP uses. And RSVP, which is a big Fairfax site, is the one I use most of, for very good reasons. It's the only big website in Australia which allows women to do their own searches, well, people to do their own searches. Elite, Singles, eHarmony, most of them use this ridiculous thing of matching people on personality tests using algorithms, so that they get you to fill out personality tests and claim to match you using their computers. It's just rubbish. And if you look at the psych research on this, it just doesn't work. And lots and lots of people have come to me after using those sites and paid lots of money to use those sites, and they just don't work for them. It doesn't mean no one ever meets anybody on that site, but you have to be really lucky. And you'll get a few good matches, and then you'll get a lot, truck drivers from Perth who have matched your personality. I mean, how useful is that? I've lost track of where I was heading with that. Anyway.
How the women can be the leaders in this.
Oh, yeah. So you have to initiate. You can't wait for the men to approach you. And most of the men who approach you are the men who are not getting much attention for good reasons. So you assume they're not. I mean, maybe every now and then a good guy will approach you. On RSVP, you can hide your profiles. You can pay extra money to not put yourself out there so that no one can see you. You can only see them, in which case you have to. And I had women in really big jobs who I had to do that with. But it means no one sees them. So the men who are hiding themselves on this premium section of RSVP never get to see these women. That's the downside, because there's no way of them seeing those profiles. Women really must put themselves out there if they possibly can and show their photos. Lots of men don't even look at, they do searches that exclude women who don't put photos up. So you'll lose a lot of the good men if you don't put your photo out there. Women are so nervous of being seen online. Come on, ladies. That 30-year-old in your office isn't remotely interested in going on RSVP to see what 50-year-old women are, online this week. I mean, people don't see you. The only people who see you are the men who are in your age group who are doing the same thing as you do. So what? This nervousness about what if someone knows, you just have to get over that, because this is how most people are meeting people. This is legit. This is normal now. And you have to get over your fear that is seen as strange or desperate.
So that kind of goes into my next question. In an article you wrote for the Daily Telegraph, you're quoted as saying that online dating is particularly difficult for women over 50.
Well, it is because of the numbers thing I've been talking about. Yeah. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. It's certainly how most people are meeting people. So I've had marriages. I've had lots of my 50-year-old plus clients that are living with people. I've had women in their 80s meeting people, going out with people, having new relationships. Women of all ages. And just because it gets tougher, I mean, you have to, okay, just because there are lots of other women out there, a lot of those women aren't very appealing. A lot of those women aren't the sort of women that the men are really interested in. So if you're a nice, sensible, attractive woman, you'll do well. But it's about being persistent. And it's about not being discouraged when you go out with quite a few people and it doesn't go anywhere. There are a lot of aspects of online dating are really frustrating. People will start a conversation with you and then will just disappear. And that's all about the fact that people don't know how to extract themselves. So, a man will be talking to 2 or 3 women And then one woman seems more, pulls out from the pack in some way. He has a conversation with her, he meets, and he's interested in her. So he'll just suddenly stop the conversation with the other women, which is just maddening. But women do it too. I mean, there's a lot of rudeness, and I worked really hard with my clients to get them to answer every contact and not just ignore people they weren't interested in, to be polite, to find a way of ending something, even if you've had one date. I mean, I think it's perfectly reasonable if a guy says, I'd like to see you again, you don't want to see them. I used to sort of fudge it and say, oh, that'd be great. Send me an email, we'll work out a time. And then I'd go home and I'd write him a really good, nice email saying, oh, I loved hearing about your dwarf collection in your garden. And, say nice things about him. Say it, you enjoyed it. And then you can say it. But, I actually, unfortunately, don't think we're quite right for each other. And, I wish you all the best. I put together a whole collection of little endings my clients had used and to share with new clients, to show them how to extract themselves from these situations. But part of it is, there's no point contributing to the rudeness. Women are very much part of the problem of why online dating is so hard, because they often treat men extremely badly. There are women out there who are using online dating as a meal ticket, who never offer to pay for anything. That's why if you go online, you'll see lots of men grizzling about, I'm not going to pay for the stamps. The stamps, you buy a stamp on RSVP to initiate email contact. And women do everything to avoid paying for that stamp, $10 or whatever, $5 or whatever it is. I mean, they're just outrageous. Who do they think they are? I mean, men are over that. Men are totally over the fact that women still delude themselves that men should pay for the pleasure of their company. What the hell? If you're a professional woman, or if you're a woman who has reasonable assets or income, why in the hell shouldn't you pay for the pleasure of his company? I was always off buying men lunch and, buying for the coffee, and because I just don't think it's reasonable that women exploit men in that way. And it's lovely if a man insists on paying for your dinner, but then I'd always say, well, next time let me pay for the movie,
Yeah.
Women have to start treating men better. And one of the reasons why a lot of men behave badly is they're responding to the way they're treated.
Well, I guess it just comes back down to treat someone the way you want to be treated.
That's right. But somehow many women seem to think they deserve better, to be treated well no matter how badly they behave, and it just bugs me.
So you've answered a couple of my questions, but another one we had was, is there any time frame that you would suggest between initially corresponding with someone and meeting up, or just go with your gut?
Oh, well, I'm a great believer in, you can do endless emailing. Oh, but it becomes so tedious. So I would, in my very first email, send them my phone number and say, let's have a phone conversation. I spent my whole life on the computer and emailing. I didn't want to pen pals, So I give them and I think go to a phone call as quickly as you possibly can. Some men won't want that, but most will love it. And you can get a lot from a phone call. I know the younger generations don't use the phone anymore, which is beyond me. But I think texting is really prone to misinterpretation.
Absolutely agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, and emailing is, even then, I mean, most men are not very good on paper. Most men are not particularly good at expressing things, writing good letters and so on. I think it's much better to have a phone call. You have to assume that he'll be nervous, you'll be nervous. It won't necessarily go smoothly. But if there was enough of a connection there, then you go to some sort of meeting. Now, with the meetings, women are far too paranoid about, the axe murderer. You must tell someone else you're going. I mean, it's just rubbish. But, and all my clients, all those years of working with people having thousands of encounters, no one had anything remotely dangerous. No one met, there were men who were clearly married men looking for a bit of sex. All, that sort of stuff is there, and you can just report them. And I had a woman who rang me up. She was in Adelaide, terribly excited. She'd met this man. Well, she hadn't met him. She'd been emailing him. And he came from Adelaide, but he was overseas at the moment working in Nigeria. And I said, come on. And I got RSVP to check him out, and they said the IP address was wrong. And I know, but a bit of that. Look, it's like walking into a huge shopping centre. There will be people there you never want to have anything to do with in your life, and there'll be lots of people there who are perfectly reasonable, you wouldn't mind meeting, and there are some people you'd love to meet. And that is what online dating is. And you just have to be careful of the ones that are, you know, a bit sus in some way. You'll find, so that's why go to the phone call, meet people quickly. Don't just have endless coffee dates and drink dates. I mean, you just get so sick of sitting there across a table regurgitating your life history, and men hate it. They hate being grilled. Your job on that first date is to give him a good time, to make him want a second date. Your job isn't to grill him, to find out every question you want to, you know. There's a woman in Sydney who goes out with an actual checklist on dates. I mean, she's delusional. Why would any man ever want to see her again? You know, and this is what you always have to understand. It's all about making him want a second date. I mean, even before you've really made a judgment about whether you'd like to see him again, it's your job is not to just put him through the ringer trying to find out what his bank balance is like. You know? And part of having a good time on that date, that meeting, is doing things other than coffees and drinks.
Yeah.
Go for a walk, a beautiful summer evening, go for a walk on the beach, through the park, go to an art gallery. I went to movies with people I'd never met before. I'd buy 2 theatre tickets because I wanted to see something, and I know I'd be seeing someone that week. And, you know, I mean, and men have invited, I've had a man who we had our first email contact with him offering, saying, can you come to the opera with me tonight? What? I mean, how bad could it be? So doing fun things, a lot of men would far prefer that. I used to take my dog. I used to often, when I went for coffee, I'd take my dog to an outdoor cafe. And if I knew 10 minutes into the conversation wasn't going to really be right for me, I'd say, oh, well, would you mind if we go to the park? At least the dog will get a walk. But, you know, you could do lots of things. My lovely man, who we've been together for 3.5 years, I mean, our first dog walk was our first date was a walk around the park with a dog. So he said he remembers me coming bounding down the hill with this enormous dog with a big grin on my face. And the first thing I said to him, oh my God, you're so much better looking than I thought you were going to be. So there you are.
And I guess if you don't have a dog, you could just borrow someone else's.
Yeah, well, maybe. Although be careful with little dogs. Men talk to me about the fact they get sick of women and their little dogs. So yappy little dogs aren't men's favourite thing. So you have to be a bit careful with that. Big dog is better, I think.
So what are some of the red flags? You know, obviously a lot of people make out that they are someone they're not. So what are some of the little warning bells in posts that you not identify quickly, aside from the photos?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think. See, I think women. I have an interesting time with my clients who are always looking for red flags, and always looking for negatives.
Okay.
I think it's much more important to look for the good, and try to smooth. You know, and so it's a different mindset. You're thinking of danger. You know, men you don't want to get involved in. I mean, a lot of those, the real con men are not going to have bad red flags flying. You're not going to pick that up quickly. And the red flags are brilliant profile. I'll tell you a wonderful example. Jesus. I had this text message, or this email originally, and then I talked to her by text. A woman who was 34 years old and had cerebral palsy and was in a wheelchair. She was one of the reasons I gave up online dating coaching. I've just decided I've had enough. Because I said immediately, of course, I'd talk to her about helping her. And I spent it was easier for her to talk on iPad and texting them. So I texted her for a whole day. She didn't want anyone disabled. She wanted someone athletic. She wanted to meet someone really quickly so she could have a child. And she'd already been online, and there was this man who'd made contact with her. And I said to her, have you asked him why he's attracted to someone in your situation? And he said, she said, he says, I'm beautiful. And to me, that was a real red flag. I mean, not answering that, you needed an answer. I mean, I don't know what the right answer to that is. It's certainly not just saying, I thought you were a standout. And I then had to work really hard with her, trying to say, be careful. Have you told your mother? Have you, I was really worried about it. I said, there are risks in this business. Women like you can very, very easily exploit it. I spent the whole day texting with her. At the end of it, she turned around and said, you haven't done a thing to help me. Anyway, so some people are delusional. But so that is a good example of red flag. If someone approaches you who's 20 years younger than you and drop dead gorgeous and claims to have a house in France, and I mean, there are men who are just con men, and they're clearly con men. Yeah. Anyone who's out of your league, just think about who you realistically can attract. And if someone comes onto you who you think, my God, he's a catch, he's probably a con man.
Too good to be
because
true.
Why would he be attracted to you? Really, there are lots of young men who approach older women because they want sex, so that's fine. And some women enjoy that. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes part of that will be maybe a rich older woman who will look after me nicely. So that's the sort of obvious thing.
These are some questions from Kitty, if you're watching, Kitty. It's come to the end of the first date. Your date has declared that they are attracted to you and would like to see you again, but in your head you are going, hell no. So what's a good way to end it? You were saying that you used to write to them. What's a good way to end it?
I mean, you can say, look, I really enjoyed that. But, that's sort of, I don't think we're quite right for each other. But I think it's hard to hear that. I mean, men have said that to me, and that was fine. But, it isn't easy. Where does the conversation go from then? What do you say after that when you're saying that face to face? And I think a lot of people prefer to be told you're not interested in them in a nice way by email or even by text, rather than face to face. And so you can fudge it and say, let's work out a time, get in touch with me and work it, And men do that too. Men will say, oh, I'll give you a ring, and they don't.
Yeah.
And if they say, I'll give you a ring, and they don't harm them because they don't want to. Yeah. If they're interested. I mean, I'm a great believer in women showing interest when they are interested. And I mean, that's what my partner Ian always says, that I made it so obvious to him I was dead keen on him from the very beginning. And it was, I mean, he told me he had still another woman he'd arranged to meet because he was, meeting quite a few people at the time. And I said, well, I hope she gets knocked over by a bus this week. So, I've learned from lots of men that women playing hard to get, playing indifferent won't help you at all. A lot of men, particularly older men, love to see a woman who seems to be interested in them, and you show that. You don't play games. This notion that men want to be the hunters and all that rubbish stuff doesn't apply anymore. So be enthusiastic.
So another one I got from Kitty, and this has happened to her because she's a very attractive woman, and so she attracts a lot of attention. She said, if someone lunges in for a kiss at the end of your first date, how can you respectfully decline? She had that happen to her a few times. Oh, yeah,
lots of people kiss at the end of the first date. I mean, it never bothered me. I thought it's just so awkward, the beginning and the end. I mean, when you meet someone, what do? I used to automatically kiss them on the cheek as if it was someone I knew, particularly when I was in the cafe where people, the waiters had seen me endlessly meeting men. You don't want to shake hands with someone. And at the end, it would never bother me if someone gave me a kiss. I mean, someone will do that. I mean, if you want to see that guy again, don't freeze. Don't say I'm not in. It doesn't hurt you. You kiss you kiss smelly old uncles, don't you? I mean, but I don't know. If you really have a strong feeling about that, you just finesse it, and you move to the side, you kiss them on the cheek or whatever. But you don't make a fuss, unless you want to not see them again, which is reasonable. No, that's the way you.
So you mentioned a couple of the sites. Oh, that was probably my last question. What are some of the best online sites to go to when you've said RSVP?
Well, that's the only one I use. And we were endlessly looking for new sites. I mean, I've got heaps of clients who are still out there looking. And plenty of fish. Look, there's some free sites. The point is, a lot of people who came to me for coaching were professional women, were women who were reasonably well off, who were looking for well-educated men. And there's a real difference between the quality of men generally on the free sites as opposed to the RSVP where you pay something. So that's, and as I said, it was the issue of being able to do your own searches. There are small, over 50 type sites, senior sites. All of them are too small. You need a big pool of people. And I mean, you can try those sites and you might be lucky, but a lot of them only have, in Brisbane or wherever you are, there might only be 5 people or 10 people or 20 people. And whereas on RSVP, they'll have 600. Really important you have that sort of choice. Yeah. But people, you start looking at often people, when they meet someone and then it doesn't work out, they'll come back to me and say, I'm going to try eHarmony, I'm going to try another site, which is ridiculous. They met that person on RSVP. It shows it works. Just because that relationship didn't work out, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with the site. You'll see people, there's an endless churn of people because people start relationships. I once wrote an article about the 3-month itch. I mean, it was fascinating how many people, my clients would contact me and say, I met someone, I'm really excited. And then within a few months, they'll come back and say it didn't work out because it takes that long to find out whether you're really compatible. It's not going to be in the first rosy glow those first few weeks. It's only a few months down the track that the real areas of compatibility or incompatibility. But they go, so that's why you see these same old faces again and again. It's a sign that the site is working because people come back to it. I mean, I have this group of women in Sydney. The funny thing, they all were originally clients of mine back 4 years ago. And I realized they were all starting to date the same men because they'd say, I met this guy called Tom and he took. And so I thought it'd be really funny to bring them all together. So we met up, we had an afternoon tea, which was just a total hoot, comparing notes. And we've been meeting for 4 years, that group. We have dinner every few months. And everybody, I think all but 2 are in full-time relationships now. Everybody's had relationships in that group, lasting 3 months or 6 months. And it shows how well the site works. But you have to keep going back. If the relationship doesn't work out, you go back to the place you met people. So the one woman who was 10 years online dating on and off, and she's met the most wonderful man, and she's really happy. But it took a lot of time to do that. Yeah. So it just shows. But it's been a fascinating thing for me watching their progress and watching the patterns and realizing how those patterns can put people off when they go on the site and see faces they saw 10 years ago. That doesn't mean that the process doesn't work. It means it works because that's why they're still there.
And I'm going to wrap up now, but you've given me so many good insights, and it's tough being a female. As you get older, it just makes it an extra layer harder. But I think what you've shared today is, it's not a go on, you meet someone, it's a quick fix. I mean, we're this consumer society where we want everything like that. And obviously that this is something you've got to invest time in. You've got to open your mind a bit more. You've got to enjoy. Yeah,
you've got to see it as a one. I mean, I loved it. I mean, sometimes you get fed up and you think, oh God, I can't bear to meet someone again. And then you go along and they turn out to be a really nice person. You think, I wouldn't have missed that. Right. You have to have a spirit of adventure, an eternal optimism, and just embrace this opportunity to, have a new aspect to your social life. And, it's better than sitting on the sidelines of life. Why would you avoid what is one of the great adventures of life, which is going out and meeting new people and having the possibility of major romance at this stage of life. I mean, it is so amazing to fall in love as I did at 64. So there you go.
That's beautiful. And hey, they're not going to come knocking on your door. You got to get out there, and if that's what you want, if you want a companion or you want, you know, someone serious in your life, you have to put in the effort.
You have to put in the effort.
You shared so much great information today.
And you have to find a fridge that likes you too. And that's not easy. Nice to talk to you, Susie.
Thank you so much. You've just shared so much great information. I'm going to put a link to your site. And
put a link to my site.
Yeah, people go on and
yeah,
watch.
there's lots of information there they can read. Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific. And we can watch the embarrassing
yeah. And tell people to look at my YouTubes, because that's what I'm doing now. I'm making YouTube videos mainly about men and men's lives, which is my big passion at the moment.
Oh, well, that's great. We might get some well, not me personally, but other women might get some insights, and that'll help them a lot with this, you know, internet dating, because it's not going to change. It's not going to go away. This is it. This is reality now. This is how the world works.
But it's a wonderful reality, and you have to embrace it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Tina.
Okay. Bye-bye.